It was a brilliant comedian on. I don't know if you've seen it doing the round. And he says, back in the day, we never talked about mindfulness. He said there was never mindfulness because you were just mindful. He said, if you were on a bus, you sat and watched the condensation. If you're waiting for somebody, you just sit and wait. So by our very nature, we were mindful. Well, now we had to give it a label because it's now something that people want to achieve. But that's actually our nature. Well, look, anything in nature, really. Nature's pretty chill until it's not. A cat sits entirely in the present. It does not concern itself about what's going to happen next Wednesday, or the fact that somebody doesn't concern itself the fact that it's got half its fur on, and it might be as ugly as hell. Those skin cats, those sphinxes, that everyone thinks are really ugly. Well, that cat does not give two fucks. I've just been a cat. I've just done my thing.
Hey there, welcome back to Good for the Hive, a weekly podcast where I get to talk to a whole host of people to share their life lessons and take a look at the question, what is a good life? This week's guest is Jason Linney, founder of Monkey Mind Meditation. I had the pleasure of meeting Jason a few weeks ago, and having spoken briefly about his work, I knew he would be the perfect guest for the show. 8 years ago, Jason discovered meditation when his life was at a very low ebb, and it has had a profound impact on his life. Jason now spends his time encouraging others to embrace a practical, accessible form of meditation. If you enjoy the episode, please do hit the like button, and if you're new around here, do subscribe. The more likes and subs that we get help us to grow and continue to attract guests that will share their life lessons with you. Let's jump into the episode. Jason Linney, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
We'll start this episode where we start all of our episodes and ask you, what is a good life?
Yeah, you sent that to me a couple of days ago, and I've been thinking about it for quite some time. Which is ironic considering I actually think about a good life all the time. But when I'm kind of asked to quantify it, I heard a beautiful monk talk a while back, and he said, the object of life is to have a pleasant life. And I really like that. A pleasant life. Not an outrageous life, not a brilliant life, not a spectacular life. I love the fact because a pleasant life symbolizes like continuity. It's not a roller coaster. But what a pleasant life comes from that is, I would say, for me, is a lot. For me, it's a life of service. For many, many years, I have been a learning and development trainer, manager, director, that kind of corporate level. And then I became a meditation teacher. And it's the realization that every single thing that I did was to try and help people lead a pleasant life. And so to my mind, that is a good life. And I love the idea also of a good life is being able to do what you love and get paid for it, and for the greater good. So I would say that's definitely part of it.
It's incredibly difficult to have a pleasant life, isn't it? Living a chaotic life is relatively simple, isn't it? You wouldn't have to try particularly hard.
Super duper easy, and there's nothing wrong with the roller coaster kind of per se, but I think a lot of people try and reach this kind of these giddy heights of experience, and they're great. I've walked on hot coals and broken glass, and it gets the energy flowing and all that kind of stuff. But those are only the highlights, and you can't be up there all the time. It's impossible. And of course, if you're up there all the time, then there's going to be an opposing Newton's law kind of thing, an equal and opposite reaction down here. And that's where people really, really struggle. I've worked with some pretty good salespeople in my time, and I've trained people in sales and the resilience from that sales and stuff like that. And one of the major things that I've tried to get them to understand is that, whenever a sale is made or something great happens, don't have a 3-day fiesta. First time you do it, great, but don't do that all the time, because then when they don't come in, when the sales don't come in, and when life isn't so good, you're going to be on the floor gasping for breath. And so I said to them, instead of doing that, why don't you do that? It's like, and that is a far more sustainable way of living, I think.
Mm. I've seen it on the Actors Studio a couple of times, that this too shall pass. You're never, when they say you're good, you're never as good as they say you are, and when they say you're bad, you're never as bad. And you're going to come to the end of it, no matter what it is. So those peaks, keep an eye on those peaks, but equally those troughs, they won't be there forever either.
Yeah, and I suppose that's when, and it's a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true. But that's where your gratitude comes in, as understanding that, times are good. This is really great, and this is lovely. And then some people say, "Oh, I wish this could last forever." And it's like, but that's like having Christmas every day. It's like you have Christmas every day, and suddenly Christmas isn't special. And so, yeah, I just I wonder when people throw themselves on that roller coaster. It can be breathtaking.
And sticking with yourself for a moment, so do you currently live a pleasant life?
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, I've had ups and downs. I mean, in the last few months, I've left my corporate job, and you got used to that over many years. Although it wasn't like the last 25 years, I haven't done other things. And so that was a bit of a shock, and that was a bit of a recalibration. But then I had to talk to myself and then teach myself all the stuff that I try and teach people about situations and how you kind of frame situations and all that kind of stuff, which has given me the opportunity now to really go for and do what I absolutely love doing. And so, yeah, I do have a pleasant life in that regards. I have great family, wonderful friends. I live in a nice area of town. Everything for me is good. And I don't get too angry about things. I don't get too sad about things. I enjoy things. I just enjoy living. I think that's really important.
Brilliant. And you are now currently a meditation teacher. Tell me how that came to pass, and what your life was before, and how it changed. And was your life, looking back to it, I don't know if we're talking 5-10 years ago, but would you have described your previous life as a pleasant life, or was it a little bit more chaotic than what you have now?
Yeah, that's a massive understatement. It was.
Talk me through it.
Yeah. I mean, let's go back about 8 years ago, and I would say, if you take out the word life and just put in the phrase dumpster fire, that's probably a better way of doing it. I was quite a few years out of a divorce. I had to go into I had lost a lot of money in several businesses, which I had put my life and soul into, to then go and get myself a corporate job. I didn't enjoy the job, to be honest. But needs must. But I felt like a failure, and I felt like everything was just rubbish and terrible. And so I did what any corporate bod would do in times of high stress, and I started maladaptive behaviors, they call them. Self-medication, a lot of drinking, a lot of sessions. I am a self-described ex-sesh gremlin. And if you know, you know. So I wasn't in a good place. I was not in a good place. And, I said to people in the past, I didn't see I didn't hit the bottom of the barrel, but I could definitely see its outline. I was going downhill pretty fast, and I knew that it wasn't me. I was not living a life, and I got myself into situations and pickles and stuff like that. I'm sitting there thinking, what is happening? This is not me. This is not who I am. And then I started with some of the apps. the headspace and the calms and stuff like that. Because I'd always heard about meditation and it always intrigued me, and I had the same perceptions as other people as to what it might or might not be. I will say misconceptions, I would say. And so I tried that and I thought, oh, that's quite nice, actually. About 10 minutes when my mind just went, stop. And me being me, as soon as I like something, I want to know everything about it. So I then dug around and did my research, and I found what I considered to be a really good meditation teacher, or certainly the website showed that to me. It was a very attractive prospect. And I went for a talk, and he gave us a little bit of a sample of the meditation. And it blew my head off. I was like, wow, this thing that I can just sit and do. And I don't need music. I don't need incense. I don't need to sit there in a weird position. I don't need anything. I just need to sit and do this technique. So I immediately signed up for the course. And it was the best money I'd ever spent in my life.
So talk me through that that intro session. What did that involve? How long was that? Was that in the UK? Was it?
It was in the UK, yeah. And interestingly enough, this is the intro sessions that I now do myself, where we talk about the nature of stress and how we are in this modern society, and basically examining the problem. And there was about 20 people in the room, and we were all going, yeah. And I was most taken by the fact that half of those people there had come from recommendation, because they had seen people meditate and they'd seen the change in those people's lives. So I thought, well, that's very powerful indeed. And he just talked us through what the process was going to be. It was a 3-session process with aftercare at the end, and how that works. He didn't teach us, obviously, how to do it, because that's for the actual course. But then it told us what we could expect with a life of meditation being integrated into our daily, our daily routine. And we all just dived to sign up. It's like, yeah, I want this like now. And the queue was so long that it filled up that weekend. I went away feeling quite grumpy. Because I was like, no, I want that now. I need that now. Like Code Red.
So it sounds really powerful.
It was. And so I did it, and we did the sessions and what have you, and also part of the deal with this kind of school of meditation is that there's free group meditations that you can do, and they're incredibly powerful, and very there's a solidarity in it, because there's a lot of people there, and we're from different times and places and shapes and sizes, and we're like everything. We're like a complete patchwork of society, but we all had a through line of similar problems and issues and challenges. And so I started to attend to those. I absolutely loved them, and eventually that meditation teacher allowed me to do some introduction talks, not to teach it, because that was a whole other thing, but certainly to do the meditation talk. And I loved it. I threw myself into that community. And then I realized that actually this is something I want to do. Because as the years went by, myself, who I am, kind of was all the crap that I'd built up over the years and years and years. And, the makeshift armor that your psyche produces with no instruction from anything or anyone, got stripped away little by little. And so it was a kind of a new adventure to find the shiny little me inside. And I loved that, And so at one point, a few years in, I stopped drinking and started leading a life of complete sobriety. And I loved that because that enhanced it. I became calmer, I became clearer, my mental acuity was through the roof because I was removing a huge amount of stress, strain, and anxiety and needless firing off of the fight or flight response. And so that was really, really nice. And And the weirdest thing happened as well, because my mind was working faster and sharper. I've always been slightly uncoordinated. I've been known to be. I'm not a very sporty person. I've always been slightly uncoordinated. And all of a sudden, I could catch balls. Somebody in the office went, "Jason, heads up!" I went, "Stop." What? And everyone looked at me and said, "How did you do that?" I was like, "I don't know. I don't."
So you get like a Jedi skill as well that comes.
Seriously,
that wasn't part of the program.
Yeah, it's because I was just sharper of mind. And so I then decided that actually I want other people to feel this way. And as I already teach people how to communicate well, and how to navigate, like all our social interactions and stuff like that with congruence. I thought, well, I've got to add that to my bow as well. And then I realized actually I would much rather do this than almost anything else. And so I learned to be a meditation teacher.
So you get that first hit, that first experience of meditation, and like with anything that you try that's new, there's a bit more adrenaline, a bit more energy in that first go. How long did it take before you started to notice the extra add-ons, the mental acuity, the clarity of mind, those sort of things? After you've had that initial sort of lift, were you talking weeks, and how many sessions a week? And was there a slow, gradual increase, or did the penny finally drop one day and you're like, this is making sense to me now?
Yeah. It was, the way this particular style of meditation is set up is the recommended kind of dose is twice a day for 20 minutes a day. Which initially struck me as that's quite a long time. That's a lot. But then when I realized that actually the time that I spent not meditating was spent being super productive and getting more stuff done in less time, I looked at it as like time offsetting. So I'm fairly good if somebody gives me instructions and I start to see results, because I automatically started feeling calmer, and I loved the fact that 20 minutes a day I would have this little holiday in my head, where I could just kind of stop and put my brain on a little deck chair and say, just hang on for a couple of minutes. That's fine. That's all good.
Does it get a little bit addictive? Just 2 times a day? And I was speaking to Megan, an energy healer, the other day, and she definitely said that she dipped into it quite a lot, and there is an addiction level to it to some extent. Like you say, that holiday in your head. Why would you not spend more time in your head holidaying if you had the opportunity?
Really, really is. There really is. But I was warned to not overdo it, because it can kind of cook your brain a little bit. It's quite a powerful technique. And I have tried it once or twice, and eventually my head just goes, "Okay, no, stop this now, please. Can we stop?" And I was like, "Okay, I'm awake." But before that, I'm sitting there and thinking, "Oh, this is so warm and fuzzy and delish. I don't really want to move, and I want this to go on forever." And then my little buzzer will go, and I'll know that, okay, it's time to stop. And I'll feel a little bit fuzzy for the first few minutes, although everything's kind of very bright and vibrant, because, your mind has still, like, the classic pond analogy that they use in meditation circles. But then I know that after that, I'll start to get a rush of energy, and I'll be, ready to go again, and have it's a complete kind of switching your phone off and switching back on again, and everything's just kind of bing. So yes, that could be quite addictive, but now it's just part of what I do, the same as brushing my teeth. Because also, not every meditation is going to be like that, and that's a really important point. People will get a really nice, scrumptious meditation when they first begin, as a rule. And then they'll go, "Oh, that's great." And I'll get them to do it again afterwards on their own. And they're like, "Oh, yeah, that wasn't so great." I was like, well, it doesn't really matter. It's still doing the work. And so I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but there's an understanding that, the quality that you put on the meditation is irrespective of what you're going to get from it.
Okay.
And by that I mean that people will then try and get that nirvana. They'll try and get that sense of calm, and they'll try and make it a goal. And as soon as you've done that, your mind has got in your way. It's got in the way, because the whole point is it's a non-doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not and trying to achieve a goal of not doing is a doing. Right?
Yeah.
I've often said to people, and they do get it eventually, I said the goal of meditation is to have no goal. And if you have no goal, then you've reached your goal. And which obviously sounds quite paradoxical. But if you look at it as the same as brushing your teeth, all right, do you have a goal for brushing your teeth? Do you expect a really nice experience every time you brush your teeth?
No,
you don't. Sometimes you're like, oh, that's nice. And you're like, oh, I feel a bit smiley now because it's right all zingy, you know? And some days you're like, oh my God, there's a little bit of blood in there. That's a bit gross and disgusting. But, you know, you pay it very little mind. And then some days you've forgotten you brush your teeth at all. Now, if you were to go into your toothbrushing experience for the experience, then you wouldn't brush your teeth very often. But you know that if you brush your teeth, then you're going to have clean teeth and they're going to be strong. And you know that that will prevent any teeth-related emergencies. Okay? Irrespective of whether you enjoyed that experience or not. And that's the same as meditation. You go into it and you do it, and part of the meditation is to accept whatever comes up.
Okay.
We don't fight it. And the technique itself shows you how you can kind of just gently turn it around without too much effort. And so a lot of times it's the attitude that you go into the meditation. That's about 40% of the actual meditation.
And that's what you need to learn as part of these courses.
Yes.
To go in with the right attitude of almost no attitude of like no expectation, no preconceptions. Go in as much close to a blank slate as you can.
Whatever will be, and don't try and not think, or don't try and have a pleasant experience. Okay, because as soon as you've done that, it's weird, because if you say, you know, and this is the biggest myth of all, I think, with meditation, is that you clear your mind. All right. Well, if it was that easy, then there would be very few mental health issues. Just clear your mind. Go on, clear your mind. No. All right. As soon as it's the pink elephant syndrome. You know, if I ask you to not think of a pink elephant, that's the first thing you're going to think of. But if I said to you, if I ask you, don't think of a pink elephant, that's the only thing you can think of. If I ask you to think of a pink elephant, you'll think of it for about 3 minutes, a minute, and then it will go. And you'll think of something else. So whatever you ask your brain to do, by the very nature of the fact that you've asked it to not do it, that's going to start thinking about what it's not supposed to be doing. Therefore, clearing your mind is impossible. All right? It's not, you know, blank. You'll be sitting there going, all right, have I cleared my mind? Oh no, I've had a thought. My mind's not clear, and I've done a thought. I wasn't supposed to do thinking because I'm clearing my mind. Oh, bollocks, I've done it all wrong. I can't meditate. And that's it. And then people give up.
And that's it. Yeah, if you don't get that instant feedback, instant gratification. You need that sometimes, don't you? Yeah.
Nirvana. And people require nirvana within the first couple of sessions. And I was like, well, part of that is understanding that the more you want it, the less you're going to get it.
So going back to your monkey mind, when you're doing these early sessions, early using Headspace and the early apps and things, was your brain or your mind or however we want to call it, was it dredging up old memories and throwing those at you? Was it putting you in uncomfortable mental situations and hard to push through? What was that like?
That was definitely part of the process, because, you know, I mean, if you look at your mind like a filing cabinet, you know, and every single time something bad happens, then, you know, there's a report written, there's snapshots taken, you know, like a crime scene, for future reference. And because we're constantly fighting all our stress and all our strains and anxiety, the brain hasn't got a chance to kind of file that away and process that away. And then, of course, we numb it. So, of course, you take all that away and you get out of your mind's way, and it will go, right, okay, I've got a minute. I'm not just fighting this stuff off. And it's looking around going, there's a lot of shit to clear out. There's a lot of stuff to clear out. It's like, right, let's start putting these files away. And when it does that, yeah, you will have meditations where suddenly really uncomfortable stuff can come up. And part of the meditation process is sitting with that and, and sitting in the fire and letting it burn. Because it's only then, Phoenix-like, can you come out of it? Because your mind needs to process. It needs to do what it knows to do. And meditation allows that to happen because it just puts the stops on all the day-to-day activity that's taken over everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I was listening to one notion that if you look at it like inbox zero, and there was one idea that you would do an hour a day of meditation, just do nothing, just sit there, do nothing, feel your feelings, wait for them to arise, and then it'll be pretty horrible, but you will get through it. And if you do an hour a day and you bash through it, eventually you will get to inbox zero. And there is a unique feeling. Yes. So Naval Ravikant, and he's espoused this idea. I think it was on the Joe Rogan podcast, of an inbox zero that is achievable. If you put in an hour a day and you feel your feelings and you'll go through this horrible period, there is an inbox zero that eventually you will get to. It could take weeks, it could take months. Presumably, if you started it earlier in life, you might get there shorter because the sort of crap that's been building and building and building won't have had as much time, but maybe it has.
Yeah.
So does that inbox zero analogy, does that chime with you? And is that something that you have reached? And I'm really curious about what that feels like and or if you get close to it, what is that like? Because I've been nowhere near it.
The interesting thing, because the meditation that I teach is called a transcending meditation, which means it can transcend your thoughts. And by that it means that because you're doing your little meditation technique, your thoughts become slipperier and slippier. And, they're all smashing around up here. And then gently your mind is just kind of letting go and they're getting slippier and slippier and things become slightly more opaque. And then at one point, because it's mantra based, you might forget to say the mantra in your head, or you might just forget that you're having thoughts. And then at that point, you just kind of fall out of time and space. And you don't know who you are. You just become and it's a very opaque term. You just become awareness. And the interesting thing about it is that when you fall into that space, you don't know that you're in there. The same as you don't know when you're sleeping. But you do know it when you come out of it again. And you're like, oh, that's nice. And you lose sense of time, and you lose track of time, and it feels very warm and it's very blissful. And it's basically, my meditation teacher said it's you minus your thoughts. Okay. And that's a lovely place to be. Now, the thing that they did say to you is, don't try and get it.
It will go further away. You try and grab it.
Yeah. You try. It's not going to work.
Would it be without your thought? Does ego play any part in this as well? The ego that we've all built up, and for me, I feel that's part of the thoughts. That's part of this person that I've become. That's maybe what did you call yourself before? The shiny being that you used to be, and you had turned into something that wasn't that. I call that the ego that has been built around. And I've had some experiences of similar things where other things have melted away, and I would describe it as my ego has melted away, and what is left is whatever pure essence, the original shiny blah blah blah. However we want to get with it. That's how I describe it. Are we talking the same? Talking the same thing?
Yeah, I think we are. Because despite the fact having meditated for 8 years and stuff like that, things still piss me off. All right,
you're saying you're not perfect?
No,
right.
Absolutely not. No, not Zen. at all sometimes. But what happens is I catch myself very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I catch myself very quickly. So if somebody said something that really offends or bugs me, I feel myself flare. All right. I mean, I do. I feel it. I mean, I'm not a fiery person, but if needs be, I will come out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but it gets doused very, very quickly because I'm very aware of my thoughts and my thought process. I'm very aware of my emotions and the fact that meditation allows you to detach from your emotions and see them for the message that they are. Because that's all they are. Emotions are just a message.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of people make those emotions their personality, their being, their ego.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, and so I'll come home and I'll be fuming at something. And then after I settle down, and invariably once I've meditated, I'm like, was that really offensive? Or did you just have a bruised ego there? I think that's just my bruised ego. Okay. So the question I would ask myself is, well, what if you took out my ego, what's left? What with that situation? And I'm able to then respond to that situation as opposed to react to that situation. It's two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I can respond with a certain degree of emotional intelligence. And it allows me, I'm sure you're aware of the Chimp Paradox. There's a book called Chimp Paradox, and very clever chap boxed off the brain, like neuroscientists boxed off the brain in three different places. I think there's a computer, which is all the processing. There's your chimp, and there's your human. Your human is this front part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex. But your chimp is your amygdala at the back. It's your fight or flight. It's the thing that will jump in at any point, and it's very difficult once the chimp has taken over, i.e. once you've gone into fight or flight. It's really difficult to pull yourself back from that.
Mm.
Okay. Classic case is if you see somebody shunt somebody in a car, and then both of them will come out ready to slay each other. All right. There's going to be no conversations that are going to be of any worth at that point because their reptilian brain at the back has just gone danger, fight. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why when people have fights and they have arguments or something happens to them and then they just flare and then afterwards they'll go, oh my God, what happened there? I'm so sorry. Because that chimp part, that reptilian part has gone down and your humans kick back in again. Now, so that's the background. What meditation does is that allows this part to have a break. And so when it does flare, it doesn't flare as much. And yeah, so as a direct result, you are less quick to anger, and you start to understand, and you have more empathy, and you start to understand where's that person coming from.
Mm.
If you see somebody who's bullying somebody at work, now it's not right. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be sorted out, and obviously, it may be punitive, but ultimately, when you look at that person, you just think, actually, so much more going on behind that. So, and allows you to look beyond that initial veil of what you see.
Mm. I think I was researching this for another podcast actually. Some of the ancient Greeks and the Stoics, they had this thing called I'm going to say it wrong because it's a word I haven't seen before, but it's like fantasia, and it is that immediate involuntary reaction to whatever has happened to you. I was looking for the field of grief actually for some reason, and it's that immediate involuntary reaction to things which is completely natural and you can't stop it, but what you can do is stop what you do next. And like you said, acknowledge that those things are happening. It's not, you've not made a mistake by having that involuntary reaction. That is human. That is being an animal that needs to survive and fight or flight and all the rest of it.
Right.
So you're not in the wrong for having that immediate thought. But what you do next is under your control 100%. And that's where you, like you say, your human brain needs to kick in and control the monkey, the reptile, all the other animals living in our little brains. Yeah.
There's a lot of them, isn't there?
There's a lot.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Excuse me, a couple of years ago, I was on the tube and I was going up an escalator, and there was 3 young lads playing with a ball, the football, and it went flying over their head and it hit me whilst I was on the escalator. I remember just shouting, "Would you just..." Oh, never mind. And it was,
that's good self-control.
It wasn't self-control. I tell you what it was, is I went through the motions and it flared for a second. And so my programming was going, yeah, I'm going to just tell them to F off straight away. And just kind of like a big bear at them. And almost immediately I went, an accident. I mean, they're stupid for playing it on the underground, but it was an accident, and they're just boys and whatever. And so it just went down straight away. And I honestly, that is a direct result of my meditation practice.
Okay. Can we jump in a little bit about where your meditation, should we put a name on it, and your meditation practice, where does that sit in the family tree of the world of meditation that's out there?
Yeah.
Because there is a little bit of a risk, like with religion, that meditation goes down the route of, no, this is the one true,
right.
And you shouldn't be doing this one. This is the right one to do, and that one, this one's slightly better, and etc. And it's them versus us because we do X, Y, and Z. So where does your meditation sit within the broader spectrum?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before I go into that, it's really important that when I was taught to teach meditation, one of our major lectures was, let people do whatever's good for them. All right, just do whatever is good for you. And then I just added on to that. Just don't. Can I swear? Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah. Fuck yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Do whatever works for you. Just don't be a dick about it. And that's it. That's actually it. So my style of meditation comes from the family tree of the Vedic meditation, from the ancient Vedas in India. So it's many, many thousands of years old. And obviously, a lot of meditation was begat from that area of the world, although not exclusively. It didn't come just from that. It came from all different types of places around the world at the same time, weirdly enough, which means that there must be something in it. But they had the monks on a mountain, and they were sitting there with arming their heads off and all that kind of stuff. But they were doing that, and they were like professional monks. And then they devised a style of meditation called the householder meditation. This was householder, yes. Okay. Householder. I'm fairly certain. And that was a practical, portable little style of meditation that you can do anywhere you like. All right, that's not going to take up all the hours of your day, and no incense. And so Vedic meditation is still taught all the way around the world. And it does have other offshoots of other different types of meditation. But this is the Vedic meditation that has been modernized. So a lot of the esoteric stuff has been removed from it. So it is a really practical cognitive technique that doesn't require any dogma, any ethos, any religion behind it, and it doesn't require. Well, interesting enough, I wanted to show you what one of the things that I've been facing here in when I started to do meditation, and this is what people think it is. I've just Googled the word meditation, and I'm just having a look at the images. All right. It doesn't require that.
No lotus position.
Do you see that? Like every single one is the lotus position with your fingers up like that, sat bolt upright, preferably, there we go, on a mountainside.
You need the scenery or else it won't work.
Yeah, and your Lululemon. And... And so to a lot of people, that's what meditation is. And this isn't, sit on your sofa in your schlumpiest gear all country, make sure your head and shoulders are up like that, but back supported, and then just crack on.
So when you say modernized, when did this version of it first come about? Was it modern for the 2000s, 90s, 70s? When?
Oh, I don't know when I don't know when the organization began. To be honest, it's an organization called One Giant Mind.
One Giant Mind. Okay.
Yeah, and it was a very talented, world-renowned meditator called Johnny Pollard, and he built this course, and it was exactly what I wanted, because other schools of meditation would say, you've got to go and meditate for 3 months by the Ganges or something like that. The barrier to entry was very high. And this didn't. I mean, it was still very, very thorough. We had to examine, the nature of the mind, the nature of the way our brain works, and it was incredibly thorough. But there was no meditating on a mountaintop, which I frankly didn't have time for.
So really, really accessible. Twice a day, 20 minutes. Again, very low barrier to entry. Anyone can do that, despite what I'll bring this up a little bit later, but I'm sure you hear a million times, I haven't got time. I haven't got time to do this. I haven't got time.
Yes.
So really, going into that, without giving away, I won't call them your secrets, but without giving away your processes, your techniques, which is part of what you teach, and this is what you enjoy sharing. What is going on in the background? What is, without using goals, because we're not aiming for goals, but the experience that you described earlier, I'm hoping you weren't getting that on your first, second, third go at this, or is it as quick as that? Once you get into this style, does it take a while of relaxing and trying not to try and all the rest of it?
Yeah, I mean, really, you could go 20 years in that.
Okay.
It's just something that can happen. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes you meditate and it looks like there's fireworks going off in front of you. Sometimes you meditate and it doesn't feel like you're meditating at all, and your brain's really, really super busy. And yeah, sometimes it's all of the above. Sometimes it starts really, really super busy, and then you fall out of time and space for 10 minutes, and then you come back again, and honestly, you just never know what you're going to get. It's the Forrest Gump of meditation. I've never called it that before, but I'm going to use that again.
But it's mantra based, and so you're repeating a mantra. And are there any other broad strokes that you can explain now of the path that someone has to walk, or someone is encouraged to walk to do this style of meditation?
Yeah, don't fight your thoughts. That's it. That's the path. It's like, you're going to have thoughts, and we have ways of gently veering away from it without saying stop thoughts. Stop thoughts. Stop thoughts. And interestingly enough, the process of that is the actual meditation. People many times think, oh, I've got to concentrate on this candle, or I have to concentrate on my breath. And the moment I'm not concentrating on my breath, I am doing it wrong. And that's not the case at all. It's this kind of gentle dance in your head where you're not really giving your mind a chance to focus on anything. And so it's like meditation teachers of the past have said, it charms your mind into calmness. That's the phrase that they use. I quite like that. It's like, there's something over here. No, there's something over here. Oh, there might be something over here. And your brain's going, I'm just going to sit here and chill. That's how I see it.
Two of my previous guests have, funnily enough, been on the 10-day Vipassana retreats. Where it's 10 days, is it 12 hours of meditation a day, maybe even longer?
Yeah.
And they say after a certain time, your brain fights back, and it will start to throw in all sorts of curveballs to try and keep you conscious or keep you thinking about something, and it will throw out some really weird stuff. Is that the sort of things you're talking about? 10 days, it's a lot. That is a lot for your brain to cope with, not being as consciously active and mulling things over as it used to be.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a 4-day meditation retreat where we would do this little technique called rounding.
What's that?
And rounding is a technique that uses breathing techniques, a mixture of breathing techniques, very light yoga asanas, and the Vedic meditation. And a whole round takes an hour. And you would, I mean, typically on meditation retreats like this, you'd eat very well, you'd eat very lightly, you wouldn't have any stimulants. There's no screens or anything like that. Nothing to jack the nervous system up. And then your meditation teacher, just depending on your level of meditation, how long you've been doing it, would determine, like, okay, this morning, Jason, you're going to be doing, 3 rounds. And then this afternoon, you'll do 4. So that's basically 7 hours of meditation. And it's wonderful. I mean, it is wonderful. It's not, I don't think it's as intense, but I don't know. I've never been on a Vipassana. From the sounds of it, it's not as intense. But after 4 days, you go away having, reached that lovely state of pleasantness, and you have a beautiful force field around you. It feels like a beautiful force field around you against all the slings and arrows of modern day living. And that's really, really nice. It's wonderful. Did I answer the question? I don't know if I went off on one there. But yeah, it does throw up high. Yeah. Every now and again, it will throw up some stuff. So there'll be one hour that it could be like really like, oh, that was scrummy. And then the next hour is like, I think weirdly enough, somebody reported that halfway through their meditation, they got phenomenally horny. and the meditation teacher went, yep, that could
That's
happen.
a thing.
Yeah, you can happen, like random, all sorts of stuff going on.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, I did it as one of my TikToks. Is like anything that happens in the meditation is going to happen, and we accept that. And that's part of it. We allow it to happen, we accept it, and then we go back to our practice. Allow it, accept it, go back. That's it, basically.
That's why it's called a practice, and it's an ongoing.
Why it's called a practice, yes. To reach a goal is pointless, and it's just classic Stoics, Buddhists, Taoists, what have you. They'll all say the same from centuries and centuries back. It's the journey. It's the journey.
Let's move on to monkey mind meditation now.
Yes.
Talk me through how that started. Let's introduce Jomo at this point.
Right.
And eventually I do want to move on to the concept of Ikigai, because it feels to me that you've definitely found it within this concept that you're doing. Have you come across Ikigai before?
That's phenomenal that you actually said that to me, because Ikigai was the concept that showed. I sat down and did it when I was at the crossroads of my life, and it came up as meditation teacher.
Yeah, I can tell. So I sat in on one of your Instagram lives the other day, and I could just see a lot of things harmonizing right in the middle there of what you're good at, what you can make money from, what the world needs, and what you enjoy doing. And yeah, I just feel that why would you contemplate doing anything else at this stage when you've got this concept going so well, and you've got your people that will join this thing, and this can grow and grow and grow. But yeah, talk me through monkey mind meditation, where you came up with the idea, where it's been, and let's introduce Jomo.
All right. So, like, going into the meditation space, going all the way back to many, many years ago when I did a neuro-linguistic programming course, and it was quite game-changing. But the teacher itself for it, and bearing in mind this is the science of communication, did it in such a boring way that I was disassociating. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And I remember thinking to myself, how come is it that we're teaching the science of communication and we're not using that particular science to communicate our theories? And so I've always thought that there has been a beautiful crossroads between education and entertainment, and people do sniffily call it infotainment. All right. Mm-hmm. But in the end, you've got to get through to people. And in the past, I alluded to several companies that I had in the past, and one of them was a kids multimedia concern where it taught kids educational stuff online, but with the use of puppets. Mm-hmm. So, and for some reason, it's sort of always a thing in my life. Although I don't sit and play with them forever, but I see the use of them. And so when I was trying to think about, well, what can I bring to the table to a really full field? And, again, refer you back to that Google search. And it frustrated me. Mm-hmm. It frustrated me that everybody that I spoke to said, my mind's the busiest mind of all. Everyone's got the busiest mind in the world. And they saw meditation as so other. Because they Googled it, and then they saw that, and they saw people dinging and chakraing and all this kind of stuff. And so, the barrier to entry seemed really high to people. And so I started calling my company Monkey Mind, because that's what the Buddhists talk about, with your mind pinging around all over the place. And it just had a nice ring to it. And it put the main problem that everybody had up front and center. I used to go to a gym called the Wimbledon Strength Club. All right. Now, everything that you need to know is in the name. It's in Wimbledon, it's a club, and you get strong. There we go. And so I thought, well, why don't I do that with my meditation company? So Monkey Mind Meditation. Well, that's really kind of cool. And then I started thinking, I don't know why, I need a mascot.
Okay.
Because I've got a whole pile of puppets. I thought, well, that'd be really interesting. I could use a puppet. I thought, well, a puppet would have to be a monkey, wouldn't it? It would have to be. It was called Monkey Mind Meditation. I toyed with the idea of a sloth, because I thought they would be quite good to teach people to meditate, or a giraffe, because they're quite lugubrious. Mm-hmm. And eventually I landed on that. So I got in contact with a friend of mine who's a fantastic designer who's done all my previous puppets. And I said to him, I need a puppet. I want to base him on all those wonderful monks that will sit there and they've got the universe in their face, and they get it. You can see when they look in their eyes, they get it. Whatever it is, they get it, and they giggle a lot, mm-hmm. and they chuckle. Like, I said, I want him to chuckle, and I want him to be able to see the universe in his eyes. But I also need him to have a patchwork waistcoat and a pork pie hat.
Why not? Why not?
I don't even know why. In my head, he needed a patchwork waistcoat and a pork pie hat. And so he came up with it. And I toyed with names. And then I suddenly thought about the concept of, the concept of FOMO. Mm-hmm. Fear of missing out. Well, there is another concept called JOMO, the joy of missing out. And I thought, JOMO, I'm going to call him JOMO.
Introverts listening to this will know exactly what you're talking about. The joy of missing out, the joy of plans being cancelled, and I've got an evening to myself again.
Yes,
brilliant.
Yes. Have you ever seen that wonderful cartoon of this woman lying in a chair, and she's kind of dribbling a bit, and her shoes have just been kicked off, and she's like that, and underneath it's just got the words "high on cancelled plans."
Yeah. I can resonate with that.
And I do my TikTok live on Friday as me, and there's a lovely little group of people. Friday night, normally nights that I would be out going absolutely crazy 10 years ago, and now I'm just sitting down and we're all chit-chatting about meditation and spaghetti bolognese. It's brilliant. So that JOMO was born, and I decided then that then I discovered TikTok, and so I started making some videos. Well, first of all, I went and got it made, and I went all in. So I went to people who had helped do The Dark Crystal, and they had done many other TV series. They were really good. I went to the studio, and there's all these puppets that you'd know from television and stuff like that. It was brilliant. It was like and they just did such a phenomenal job on it. And so then I started to go live about 6-7 months ago. And initially, because obviously TikTok gives you a bit of a bump, I learned a lot about TikTok. But people come in, and initially, quite often, they're quite scared. What's this? Because nobody's seen anything like that before. I mean, there are definitely those puppets on TikTok, definitely, but this is kind of next level. And I made it as shiny and as professional as possible. And then after a while, they'll go, what the F is this? And if they don't get blocked at that point, we now give them a chance, because that's most people's reaction. And then about a minute or two later, they'll go, actually, this is quite calming. And then about 4 or 5 minutes later, they'll say, this is really working. This is weird. And then at the end of the live, they'll go, when are you on next?
It's such an interesting concept. I joined, and it is a little bit trippy when you join. I wasn't sure what I was joining, and you join it, and you're like, and it was. I
didn't tell you, did I? When we were talking beforehand.
No, I don't think so. I didn't know.
I just said, go and have a look.
And I was like, okay, this is a little bit, like you say, you go through the emotions of, okay, what am I exactly watching here? Okay. And then it is just nice. The flow of it, the concept is just, I don't know, time will tell how genius it is, but it comes across as such a nice way. You using puppets, you think, oh, am I watching something that's not aimed at an adult? Oh, hold on a minute. This is quite clever. This is quite a useful tool to break down some of the silly barriers that we've already got, get some people easy access into this world. And he's talking sense. He's created a character around it. There's obviously other people that are loving it as well. They're putting in loads of hearts and all the other ways that you can sort of sponsor things through these Instagram lives. And you do go along with the ride. And I was thinking I'll jump in for 20 minutes, see what it's about, find out exactly what's going on. I stayed on, and it's got a nice little flow to it. You break it down into, say, this is the only one that I saw. You break it down into sort of a starting meditation. Then you have a bit of a chat with the audience that has grown, and then you end with a nice story. And you do this. How often are you doing these now?
Yeah, well, I'm just going back to what you said. I'm glad that you saw that, because again, I think that's my training, my professional job kicking in there, in as much as I know how to fill an hour with stuff and to change it up each time. So I'm so pleased that you actually picked up on that, because there's a beginner breathing kind of meditation, little chat, but also I put in a nice little story with an allegory in it as well. And then final visualization meditation, not necessarily meditation, it's more of a sleep story. And then a lovely little loving kindness one at the end, which is kind of like just a little non-religious, but kind of prayer-like, nice way of sending everybody out on their way. And people got used to that very, very quickly. And what was interesting was that when I spoke to the head moderator in our team, she mentions the fact that it's like your childhood friend telling you that everything's going to be okay. And I love that. I didn't even think about that, because initially Jomo was designed for kids.
Right. Okay.
Initially, that was my thought. It's like, I'll have me as for adults and I'll have Jomo for kids. But then, of course, I'm doing it at 9:00 at night. The reaction has been wonderful. I mean, I get some amazing messages sent to me about how people have found a little bit of hope in their life. People that have had suicidal ideation have said, this has actually kind of brought me back down. I mean, that kind of blows my mind, really. We get a lot of neurodiverse people coming onto it as well. In fact, there's one of the watchers. It's a mum with her kid, and he tends to jump quite a lot at this time of night. And so every single night, Jomo will say, now, whatever his name is, I won't tell you, but time to settle down. And he does. He settles down, and then I'll get a little message from that mum saying, "Yeah, he's gone to sleep." He's gone to sleep. And then sometimes people just they report back on it, and some of my ex-colleagues have listened in and stuff like that, and they said, "Yeah, actually, sometimes I just put it to the side. I listen to your voice." Jomo does Sunday nights because we have a Sunday Scary edition.
Scary edition.
Sunday Scaries. The Sunday Scaries. People get that anxiety on a Sunday.
Yeah, okay.
For the week ahead, so they just need a little friend to kind of welcome them into the week. I do Mondays as me, and then Jomo's back on Wednesday for halfway through the week, and then I do Fridays as me. So it's obviously a very, very different flavour. Same person. Well, it's really odd because people will say to Jomo, I'm sitting there saying the words, and they'll say, "We had Jason on last night." And Jomo will say, "Did you? How was it?" He goes, "Yeah, he was quite good. He was quite good. I do like your nights better though."
Really?
I love it. I love it.
You don't want to break the fantasy for them.
No, and interestingly enough, the moderators of Team Jomo, they tell people off if they say the P word.
P word?
Puppet.
Okay.
So including me. So somebody will come on and go, "Where do you get that puppet from?" And they'll say gently, "We don't say the P word here." And now all the rest of the community are going, "We don't use the P word here."
So it's turning into an army of moderators for you, and this is how you build this up, isn't it? They kind of
self-moderate, which is absolutely brilliant, because I think that it's upholding this beautiful little fantasy of this lovely little chap just saying, "It's going to be okay. It's good."
And is this
so that's where I come from?
And the character that you've created, is this something that you did with one of your previous companies, or is this something that you've just it's obviously essentially you, but you add in this the laughing, the joking aspect to it?
So my previous the iterations of the puppets, they were all quite outrageous. So I had a very outrageous American dragon, a slightly Essexy big pink monster, very posh cat, and this just crazy purple thing that screamed and shouted all the time. So I couldn't use anything that was all a bit too urgent and frantic. But over the years, I had some lovely compliments about the timbre of my voice. And so I thought, well, I'll just be me. And as this time has gone by, Jomo's character has just kind of come out of that. So I definitely go into Jomo mode. And so, you would see you would feel a different vibe whenever I do a meditation as to whether he does a meditation. I think his is probably a little bit more, are we sitting comfortably? Then we begin. That kind of thing. Whereas I'm just slightly more down to earth.
Okay. And how so you do your 20 minutes twice a day for you.
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing this either as yourself or as Jomo, does that count towards a level of meditation practice for yourself, or is it just especially when you're Jomo and you're looking at the comments, is it actually not that relaxing for you to do that, or how do you find that?
No. When I do it as myself, it is. In actual fact, sometimes I just kind of find myself just kind of doing that, and then I kind of wake up. I was like, "Oh, right. I wonder if there's anybody still here," because I have my eyes closed. But when I'm doing it as Jomo, it's a whole different thing, because I've got my iPad and I'm reading, and the first few minutes I say the same thing every single time, which means I can say it standing on my head, and so I start to get involved and watch the conversations. And of course, at the beginning is when people are coming in and can sometimes get a little bit unruly. And so sometimes an argument might break out, and I'm like, "Oh my God, what's going on? I want to read this." And I'm still saying the words really, really softly. And then I have to click. It's like, okay, no, read. And I just move over and I just read it. And I just ensure, because in the past when I've looked at recordings of it, I can see where I've lost concentration. And Jomo his whole being starts to get a bit sloppy and not Right. So I was like, no. I can't do that. I'll just get a report at the end from the other guys as to what happened, because I
Right.
can't pick up on that. And they're really, really good, because whenever we have Q&As, they know the kind of questions that I would love to answer, so they pin them at the top.
Mm.
So they automatically pin
Yep.
these questions, and they'll know not to pin the same questions. Or sometimes they'll pin questions that they know will allow me to go into selling some of the things that we have at Monkey Mind, like the course. Or, well, when it's me, I go for our Learn to Meditate course. When it's Jomo, he does cameos. Do you know Cameo?
No?
No. So Cameo it was started in the lockdown, where famous people started sending messages to people.
Yes, right, okay.
Right. And so now there's a proper service, and there's a whole app and all that kind of stuff. And when you can put yourself forward as an artist, and if you have a certain element of quote unquote fame, which for me is negligible, but they still allow me to do it. So he does little personalized meditations for people.
I saw that, yeah. So was that 2 to 3 minutes, or was that quite a short stint that you will record?
Yeah, it's about 5 minutes, and it will be entirely personalized to that person, and for whatever challenge they may be having, according to whoever did it. Or maybe people will do it for themselves, and they just want one with Jomo. They've got their little name badge at the bottom of the screen, and it's nice music and all that kind of stuff. And again, it's just a different way of getting people involved in meditation. And that's the whole point, is to get people to understand that it is so much easier than you think. And it's really powerful, and actually it can be fun.
And do you have any ideas for the future of Jomo, this concept and the frequency that you're doing what you're doing at the moment? Is this sustainable, and will you just go with the flow of technology, and as new ideas come up and new ways that you can share this message, or do you have anything in the pipeline now that you think you're going to be able to share it either wider or faster? Or
well, I've always been an early adopter of technology. I love it. In actual fact, my previous puppets were doing online broadcasting, because I was taken by Skype. But unfortunately, the world wasn't quite ready for that concept at the time. So, at the moment, we're going to start recording some series of meditations, and they'll be themed. So at the moment, I've just completed recording a whole pile of mythical meditations. So they're just lovely meditations where you might, because we did a unicorn, talking plural, the two of us, we did one on unicorns, and people loved it, and the kids absolutely loved it. And they were closing their eyes and they were doing the whole thing. So I thought, well, it'd be quite nice if everybody met different mythical beasts, and those mythical beasts had something in them that kind of draw out a lovely characteristic. Like you speaking of dragon, and it's kind of bravery and wisdom and stuff like that. So I thought that might be a nice thing to do as well. So I've got a whole part, and maybe meditations for different parts of a child's life. Maybe the first day of school, or maybe they're having a challenge with homework, or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of ideas. And my problem at the moment is I have to funnel them all, and I have to niche down.
Okay.
Because otherwise my brain starts going everywhere. I can do this, and I can do that, and I can do the other. I mean, in an ideal, wonderful world, maybe some very kind, broadcast channel might see it and go, "Oh, maybe that's a thing." But I've been there before, and so I'm fairly grounded with that one.
So we had Joe Wicks as the nation's gym teacher, or whatever it was. You could be the nation's meditation teacher.
Well, now it's funny you say that, because Joe Wicks started by handing out leaflets outside Surbiton Station.
Was it Surbiton? Was it? Oh, okay. I always had Richmond in my head. Was it Surbiton Station?
It was Surbiton, which is where I was handing out leaflets a couple of weeks ago.
There you go.
Because it's about 4 minutes away from where I live. So I just thought, well, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me.
I mean, it's impressive to for the children that I've got in my life to get any of them to sit down, get off an iPad, and even understand what we're talking about when we talk about meditation. It's impressive. That's not an easy feat, is it? For the average child, I would assume.
Not at all, which is why it's talking to them in their language. One of the most popular videos that I put up is Jomo with a whole pile of balloons behind him on a video screen, and he's getting people to put all their stress and their anxiety and blow it into a balloon. And of course, at the same time, you're getting people to breathe, deeply into the balloon, and you let go of the balloon, and people love it. And I was with my nephews and nieces this weekend, and I taught my sister-in-law to meditate, and so she's now said to the kids, "Oh, I'm doing my meditation," so they kind of copy her. And so the littlest one came up to me, and she said, "Oh, Uncle JJ, do you want to see me meditate?" I was like, "Yes, I do." So she typically went like that. I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna let that slide. That's fine.
She's 6. It's fine.
Whatever works for you. Whatever works for you." And I said, "Do you want to see a monkey meditate?" And she said, "Yes." And she was like, and he said, "Close your eyes." And so she closed her eyes, and she got on with it. Of course, every now and again, she kind of did that, as kids would do, because there's a monkey talking, and I want to see the monkey. But yeah, so ultimately, I can see him beaming in. I would like to see him beaming in live to schools. Really, very much part of that, and I can see him as a cartoon character. I've been challenged many a time to write really weird and wacky meditations. Because one day I decided, I wonder what it would be like because a lot of times meditation, or certainly the mindfulness style of meditation, is about exploring the here and the now and your senses and all that kind of stuff and your thoughts. I thought, I wonder if we could do a meditation on a sausage. And so I wrote a sausage meditation, and it was very popular.
Anything you want.
Well, you can do that, you see, because you can do mindful eating. You can do you can do like walking meditations where you kind of feel your feet on the ground. So it's activating your senses and being present in that time. And so, well, if you can do it on walking, then you can do it on eating a sausage. And
lay the challenge down there.
The challenge was laid down, and they really pushed me. At one point, I did one about walking a dog in space. So I imagine the purists are probably going to be absolutely spinning like tops at me talking like this. But again, it's each to their own. There's a great meditator on TikTok. He's got 500,000 views, and he just swears throughout the entire thing. I don't know if
Australian, is he? Where's he from?
No, he's American. He wears this hat. He's got this big bushy beard, and it will start with like, "What's up, fuckers?"
It's like in church, isn't it? It's like if you present something in a different way, it's just refreshing that you don't have all this nonsense that comes with it. It's like, oh no, we can do whatever we want. We make the rules. We don't have to do this in a certain way that you're used to seeing. If we want to swear and mix it up, who's going to stop us?
That's exactly it. And I figured that it will find an audience.
500,000 people who like a swearing meditation teacher. Brilliant.
For a start.
Yeah.
For a start.
Yeah.
I think what he's doing is brilliant. Do I enjoy those meditations that he does? Not really, but that's not my thing. All right.
Yeah.
But I think it's amazing that he's got 500,000 people interested in meditating. I mean, like, hats off for that, really. So I think there's people. I don't think there's anybody that I know or have met that couldn't benefit from a good meditation practice.
So talk to me about meditation for people who don't do meditation. What are the most common excuses you hear when you're talking to people? My one, I've said it myself, I hear it a lot. I just don't have time for meditation. I don't have time to invest in these things, which is complete nonsense. I realize that, but I still say it. And I say, I wish I'd dedicate more time to it. But I put that excuse out there. What other ones do you hear and Can you do a bit of myth busting of like, well, it's 20 minutes twice a day. You've got time for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from a practical point of view, yeah, it's actually 2.4% of your day.
2.4%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the maths has already been done. And so I would say to anybody, if I was to look at your phone and your screen time, would that fit into that straight away? Okay. Mm-hmm. To which the answer would be, I would say almost guaranteed more than that. But it's not even that really, because it's all a question of value. You know, if I said to you, Alex, I need you to meditate 20 minutes a day for twice a day for 30 days, and I'll give you £1 million if you do that. Would you do it?
I would do that.
You would do that because suddenly it's a value to you. Mm-hmm. And yet, if you can remove stress and anxiety and overwhelm from your life, and your mind goes back online again, and you start to feel happier and more contented, your baseline level of happiness has gone up, and your connection with other people has gone up, and your anger has gone down, all those kind of things, right? All those kind of things. That's what that would give to you. And yet, for some reason, people don't or haven't seen the connection of the value of that. If you're the biggest asset that you have in your life is your brain, it is the number one asset in your life, because you could do without half your body and still be alive. All right, but your brain has to be looked after, because it determines your entire reality, and it determines the quality of your life. And yet somehow there's, like I say, there's a disconnect between people seeing that this is such an important asset, but 250 quid for a meditation course is too much.
It's interesting you say it, or you frame it like that. Do you find people, once they've dedicated some time to meditation and made that link, do you find people ever giving it up? And then one of my previous guests called it a veil of forgetfulness, that we almost forget. We know there's huge benefits. We know the time is well spent and it's worth it, and that there is value there. And yet we still almost forget that it's there. And we know how to make our lives or our brains or our mind, work that a little bit easier. And we forget to do it, and we choose not to do it. And it's understanding that.
Yes. Understanding that. Yeah. And it's kind of, because I rarely miss meditations these days. At the very outset, I would do one, but mostly 90% of the time it's two, because I've worked really, really hard at that. Now, on the rare occasions, maybe I'm traveling or something like that, or maybe it's just like a massively busy weekend. It's more difficult in the weekends when you've got more time and you have less structure. And you suddenly realize that maybe you haven't meditated for 3 days, but you're feeling out of sorts. You're like, yeah. And I always look at it as a mental force field. I mentioned that before, but the force field needs recharging. Okay, that force field against all the stuff that's going to impact the quality of your life, because that shit will never stop coming in at you. It will never stop. So the only way to keep it out is to recharge it. And when you don't, you can start to feel the stuff happening in your head. And that's what people report. They'll say, oh yeah, I did it for a couple of weeks and felt great and brilliant. And then I thought, I don't need to do it anymore. And then within a week, I was having a panic attack. And it's like, well, it's the same as going to the gym. Everything about meditation is directly analogous with going to the gym. Yeah, I got myself really thin and ripped and muscly. So good, I'm there now. So I just went back to where I was before. I'm doing what I was doing before. And lo and behold, I'm not ripped and muscly and slender anymore. It's that thing. So there's a number of things. So I think, first of all, people aren't making it a priority. They don't see the value of it. It's just so strange. If I told you all those things that it did for you in meditation, and I said that is all in this pill, and this pill would cost you £100 a month, and it would take away all those things and give you all that stuff, would you buy that pill? I would be the richest man on earth. Right?
I've seen that analogy with the gym as well. It's like if you could take a pill and it could make you better looking, more energetic, live longer, thinner, all these things, would you take the pill? And it's a no-brainer, isn't it? It's a no-brainer, and yet there still is a chasm between people taking the step, keeping that routine going. And
the only difference between the gym and that is the gym actually does take an active doing, whereas meditation does an active not doing. I would say, but many people are very scared of silence. They're scared to look into that place deep inside, or they're scared to even acknowledge that it's almost there. And I think that counts for a lot. It's that thought of starting to do the work.
They did a study recently with men and women. I can't remember what the split was gender-wise, but you can either sit there for 10 minutes in silence without your phone, or you can receive an electric shock and get your phone and go back on your phone straight away. And the more people took the shock and were then entertained again and getting those dopamine fixes rather than just sitting in silence. I believe it was for 10 minutes. And I think the men might have been worse than the women. And it just shocked me and let me get my dopamine fix from my phone again.
Well, I can't even start on that because that would be another hour. So seriously, and all my courses or anything I do, I am known for being the person. Do not come in to the room with a phone because I need you present. I absolutely have to have you present. And I think it's responsible for this. It's the pandemic that nobody talks about. Really, I think. It was a brilliant comedian on, I don't know if you've seen it doing the rounds, very sweary, American guy. And he says, back in the day, we never talked about mindfulness. He said there was never mindfulness because you were just mindful. Because he said, if you were on a bus, you sat and watched the condensation. If you're waiting for somebody, you just sit and wait. So by our very nature, we were mindful. Well, now we had to give it a label because it's now something that people want to achieve. But that's actually our nature. And if you look at a cat or a dog, all right, look at anything in nature, really, nature's pretty chill until it's not, all right? A cat sits entirely in the present. Entirely. It does not concern itself about what's going to happen next Wednesday. Or the fact that somebody doesn't concern itself, the fact that it's got half its fur on. And it might be as ugly as hell. Those skin cats, those sphinxes, that everyone thinks are really ugly. Well, that cat does not give two fucks. It's just like, I've just been a cat. I've just done my thing. All right? And every now and again it will get frantic or it will need something, and then it will go back to its state of calm. So that calm is our nature. That's within every single human being. It's a universal experience. But the problem is we've just piled a whole pile of stuff on top of it. And so people think that they're trying to achieve calm. They're trying to get to calm. And they forget that actually it's there already. You just have to remove everything else.
And thank you so much for spending this amount of time with us.
That's right.
Before we jump into the quickfire round at the end, are there any other areas of mindfulness that you engage in? Obviously, you like sharing the benefits of meditation. Has journaling played its part? Breath work? Any of the other areas of mindfulness that have stuck with your routine, or are you purely on?
Yeah. I mean, we call it journaling now, but when I was 9, I got a diary, and it was Merlin's Magic Diary, and there was this big pink book with Merlin on it going like that, and I started writing a diary. I was 9, and I'm now 53, and I still do it. So I mean, I've done it all my life. Not every single day. And then about a few years ago, I moved to electronics, so I get a little notification on my phone saying, I don't know if it's on here today. Oh, it's not. On this day 8 years ago. And I use that for reflective times. because whenever I was going through my really bad patches, I documented it all.
Oh, wow.
And so I can start to see as the years go by. On this day, 8 years ago, and then I can see 7 years, 6 years, 5 years, 4 years, and I can start to see my progress or not. So journaling has been massive in my life. Yeah, definitely. Breathwork is something that I would love to try. Definitely, there's definitely something to be said for that, I think. But yeah, I mean, and I'm a huge lover of music, to be honest. So I'll sit there and put myself on little musical journeys, and that's massive for me. Absolutely massive.
So, what blog, podcast, or book would you give to someone who wished to live a good life?
Sounds like a cliche, but I do well, the Tao Te Ching, but with notes. Because in and of itself is too difficult, but with the notes, yeah, definitely that I think is definitely signs of a good life. For those people who want a life of sobriety, the unexpected joy of being sober.
Was that something you read immediately prior to deciding to give it up, or?
Yes, absolutely, and it was instrumental, and interesting because she in it she said, find your own unique combination, and I have used that ethos. I have gently stolen that ethos for this and what we do here. It's like, find whatever works for you, which piece them together. Don't be dogmatic. Don't just go, right, I found this great way that works for my life. Now everybody needs to do this. All right? It's not going to work. So, yeah. Bespoke your pleasant life.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was your biggest light bulb moment where you discovered something about yourself?
It was actually sometime into my meditation journey, and I also do psychometric work and behavioral assessments and stuff like that. And I did it on myself, and I started to ask myself, why am I like this? And I suddenly realized that it all went back all the way back to boarding school and a whole other pile of different other things. And I realized that over my life, I have built up this survival personality that was not true to who I was before I went to boarding school. And so I started stripping that back. And then one day I suddenly felt like I was 9 years old again. And I loved that person. And that was the shiny little me that I talked about.
And was that a specific psychometric test that you did, or just a group of them, and it sort of led you to see that?
It was a group of them that gave me like some, I was an absolutely rabid people pleaser. Yes, I just needed affirmations, and I realized that was, I needed to entertain people and be the big kind of, like jazz hands, man on camp kind of thing. And it was just a requirement to be loved and acknowledged. And also, that was to stop me from being bullied at school. I'd be the big entertainer, the funny guy, the guy who always did the shots first and all that kind of stuff. And actually,
got you at the firing line.
It really did. It really did. The meditation actually then made me realize that actually that's not who I was, and that's not who I want to be. And when I found that little shiny person inside, I was like, and so I felt like I've been living a more authentic life, and still being me, and can still be a big old tart, but but a calmer
one. Which life lesson do you wish you'd learned a little bit earlier?
Oh, that not everyone's going to like you. That was a big one. And it doesn't matter what you do, who you are. It doesn't matter. Not everyone is going to like you, and that's okay. That's fine. And actually, the more you're yourself, the more people who do like you will come into your life. And to not stress about what people who don't like you think. Because what's the point? Why would you take someone's opinion of somebody that doesn't even like you, that you don't even like, and you're not going to like everybody either.
So when you're at school, your world is so small that concept that you've just described is just impossible to imagine, isn't it? It's just like, no, that's
Very
one
much so.
person doesn't like me. No, that's world over. No one likes me, and everyone's going to side with that person and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah. And we're primed to see danger, which is why we're, as a species, quite negatively based. And so, you'd have 100 people that said, Jason's ace. And one person goes, I live without it. And it's like, and that's what I would go to bed with. It's like, what? You must love me. The world is not right unless this happens. And now it's like, if you don't like me, I don't give a fuck.
Here's Jomo. Do you like him? All right, well,
right.
Bugger off as well then if you don't. What has been your best mistake?
I would say probably overdoing it on the hedonistic life. Definitely. Yeah. Well, because had I not overdone it, then I wouldn't have got to the place I'm at. And I count my life of sobriety with the meditation and all that kind of stuff. I kind of count it as my second life. I think my first life was amazing and brilliant and wonderful, and I had the best time until I didn't.
You can't remember it, but it was amazing.
Can't remember it.
People tell me it was great.
And there's some photographic evidence to prove that. But, of course, a lot of that was done in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, so not much. And so overdoing that seemed like the end of the world at the time. But it was the best thing because it lifted the veil of a completely different way of life that I never knew could exist. And so I would say, and I've, interesting that I've been thinking about that this afternoon since you sent them to me, and I couldn't think of it. I couldn't work out what it was. And as soon as you said it now, that's what it was. Definitely best mistake ever. Because had I not gone so hard, I would probably still going at it today.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't be having these conversations now. So no.
Oh, good. If someone wanted to take one step towards having a good life, what would you tell that person to use as that one step?
It's just such a cliche, but again, born of necessity. Just be kind to yourself. All right, give yourself a break. There's every single person in your life will come and go. They'll all die, or they'll go, or whatever. You're going to say goodbye to them all. All right. But the one person that's going to be with you consistently for the rest of your life is you. So it's a tiny little team, and so you've got to make sure that you get on with your teammate, and you've got to give yourself a break. And I think there's two things that need to be done. You need to be gentle with yourself and relentless with that gentleness. And I know that those two things seem paradoxical, but you need to be relentlessly gentle. Yeah. It doesn't stop you from standing around saying, no, come on, get a grip. You had a pity party for 2 days now. Pick yourself up. All right. Get your shit together. That's fine. But turning around and saying, you are the most useless person alive. Nobody likes you. Now go and eat some worms. That doesn't work. Palpably, it does not work. And so, that is the first step because everything else permeates from that, I think.
Brilliant. And last one, who in your life should we talk to if we wanted to live a good life?
Jomo.
There you go.
Because he seems to have more answers when I'm Jomo than me. I don't know how. He comes up with better stuff than I do. That's a really, really difficult one to properly answer. Just to have a really good life, just take steps towards the people who get you, the people who you can be silent around. Yeah, that's it. That's what I would say. Yeah, the people who you can be silent. Well, I go to my families, and there's a lot. It's a kind of half Irish family, so it's very, and I'm part of that. And then every now and again, I'll just sit back and I won't say anything for half an hour. And nobody notices. Nobody cares. I'm just sitting back for half an hour.
And you're not affected either. It's not like you feel like you're inside yourself.
I'm not affected. I'm just watching, and that's fine. And so that's got to be a pleasant life, right? That's got to be a good life. That you can sit around and you don't feel like, my best friends, I can just sit around and just not talk at all, and then say something ridiculous 25 minutes later, and then they'll just pick up on that conversation and go with that ridiculous stream of consciousness.
And it's that, for me, it's that tranquility and contentment that you can just sit back and appreciate what it is. You don't have to be on show. You don't have to be on stage. You can just relax, and you are where you are. And it's tranquility and contentment is how I.
Yeah, and the people who are with you in your life will know the difference between you just being content and you not being okay. There's a difference in that. There's different silences. They'll get the different vibes. If you're just sitting there contented like a cat, just not talking. I think that would be my answer.
Brilliant. Well, Jason, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Is there anything else that you wanted to leave the listeners with that we haven't talked about?
No, I hope some of the stuff that has resonated. I suppose if you don't, then you're one of those people that don't like me.
And we know where they can go.
That's fine. And that's absolutely fine. I would love people to come along to our TikTok lives and just say hi to Jomo. And of course, if anybody is interested, I know that you've got a lot of meditation teachers on here, but if anything resonates with those people about the style of meditation and the way I teach people, then please, look me up and come and have a conversation with me.
Yeah. So there we go. So if anyone does want to follow and link up with you, what is the fastest way? How do they find you on socials, etc.?
Yep. Go onto monkeymindmeditation.net or on any of the socials, it's Monkey Mind Meditation. I'll come up pretty quickly, and then just kind of DM me. I always say, just nudge your way into my DMs because I think sliding's a little personal.
Unless you're getting horny in a meditation, then it's absolutely fine. And that brings us full circle nicely.
Definitely. I have no comment on that.
Well, brilliant. I'll include all the links on the show notes, etc. But Jason, Linney, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. See you later.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Do hit the like button on your way out and subscribe if you're new around here. See you in the next one.